The silent signal. The South Pacific rolled beneath the research vessel, Nautilus like liquid obsidian, its surface barely disturbed by the pre-dawn breeze. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the bow, her dark hair whipping around her face as she studied the readouts on her tablet. The numbers didn't make sense. They hadn't made sense for the past 3 days. Dr. Chen, her research assistant Marcus, appeared at her elbow. The new frequencies are coming through. Well, you should see this. Sarah followed him to the ship's laboratory, where banks of sophisticated monitoring equipment tracked deep-sea whale communications. But the patterns scrolling across the screens weren't anything like whale song. They were too precise, too structured, and most importantly, they were coming from depths where no known creature could survive. The readouts pulsed with an eerie regularity that no natural phenomenon could explain. Sarah had spent the last decade studying marine mammal communications, but this was different. The frequency patterns weren't random. They contained mathematical sequences that reminded her of prime numbers. "How deep is the signal originating from?" she asked, leaning over Marcus's shoulder to study the data. "That's the thing," Marcus replied, his voice tight with excitement. "According to these readings, 11 kilometers down. In the Challenger Deep." Sarah's breath caught. Nothing could survive at those depths, at least nothing they'd ever discovered. The pressure would crush any known living organism, yet there it was, a clear, repeating pattern emanating from one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. As she studied the wavelengths, something changed. The mathematical sequence shifted, becoming more complex, more urgent. And then it happened. A voice, not sound, but pure thought, bloomed inside her mind. "Please, help us." Sarah stumbled backward, catching herself against the lab bench. Marcus looked up in alarm. "Dr. Chen, are you all right? Did you?" She pressed her hand to her temple. "Did you hear that?" Marcus frowned. "Hear what?" "We cannot hold them back much longer. Earth is our last refuge." The voice was clearer now, carrying with it impressions of vast underwater cities, of a civilization as ancient as the oceans themselves. The Meridians, they called themselves. They had fled across galaxies, seeking a world with oceans deep enough to hide from their pursuers. The Harvesters, a species that saw other sentient races as nothing more than resources to be consumed. "We're receiving something else," Marcus announced, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "A new signal, coming from high orbit." Sarah's blood ran cold as another set of impressions flooded her mind. Massive ships, dark against the stars, designed to drain entire oceans and harvest whatever they found within. The Harvesters had followed the Meridians to Earth. "Get me a secure line to Naval Command," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "And contact Dr. Patil at the Quantum Communications Lab. We're going to need her help." As Marcus scrambled to make the calls, Sarah pressed her palm against the cool glass of the laboratory's observation window. Somewhere in the darkness below, an entire civilization waited, hoping that humanity would prove to be different from all the other species that had turned them away. "We believe in you," the voice whispered. "We have watched your kind. You are young, but you possess something we have not seen before. An ability to defy impossible odds through sheer determination." Sarah squared her shoulders. Humanity had never faced a threat like this before, but that had never stopped them. If there was one thing humans excelled at, it was protecting their home and those who sought sanctuary within it. "We'll help you," she whispered, both aloud and in her mind. "We'll find a way." The response came not in words, but in a wave of gratitude and relief so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. Outside, the first rays of dawn painted the Pacific in shades of rose and gold, and Sarah knew that this sunrise marked the beginning of humanity's greatest challenge, and perhaps its finest hour. They had 48 hours before the Harvester ships entered Earth's atmosphere. 48 hours to prepare for a war unlike any in human history. A war that would be fought not just for humanity's survival, but for every species that had ever sought refuge in Earth's embrace. Sarah turned to the banks of equipment, her mind already racing with possibilities. They would need to develop new technologies, find ways to communicate and fight at crushing depths, and convince the world's governments to unite against a threat they couldn't yet see. But first, they needed to understand their new allies. As if in response to her thoughts, a series of images began flowing into her mind. The complex biology of the Meridians, their mastery of bioelectric fields, and their desperate journey across the stars. "Marcus," she called, pulling up a new document on her tablet. "Get ready to record. We're about to learn more about ocean physics than humanity has discovered in the last century." The sun climbed higher, its light catching the spray of waves against the Nautilus's hull. In the depths below, ancient eyes watched and waited, holding on to hope that finally, after millennia of running, they had found not just a refuge, but champions willing to stand against the darkness that pursued them. The silent signal had been answered. Now the real work would begin. Depths of courage. The Situation Room at Naval Command Pacific was absolutely silent as Sarah finished her presentation. Admiral Chen. No relation, though the coincidence had sparked a brief moment of levity earlier, stood at the head of the table, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of the Challenger Deep. "Let me get this straight, Dr. Chen," he said, his voice carefully measured. "We have an advanced alien civilization hiding in our oceans, another hostile alien force approaching Earth, and less than 40 hours to prepare a defense. 39 hours and 17 minutes, to be exact," Sarah replied, bringing up the orbital calculations Dr. Patel's team had provided. "But we also have something the harvesters don't expect. The Meridians are willing to share their technology with us." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "And why would they do that? Most species guard their technological advantages carefully." "Because we have seen your history," came the voice of Nixus, the Meridian leader, transmitted through the experimental interface Sarah's team had cobbled together in the last 6 hours. "You are young, but you understand something that many older species have forgotten. The strength found in unity despite differences." The hologram shifted, showing the bioorganic vessels the Meridians had used to escape their homeworld. The technology was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Ships that were grown rather than built, powered by the same bioelectric fields the Meridians used to communicate. "We've already begun adapting their bioorganic tech to work with our existing systems," Sarah explained, nodding to Dr. Patel, who stepped forward with another set of schematics. "The Meridians can generate powerful electromagnetic fields, but they lack our experience with offensive weapons. Together, we might have a chance." The next hours passed in a blur of activity, as military forces worldwide were quietly mobilized under the guise of a massive training exercise. Sarah worked with an international team of scientists to merge human and Meridian technology. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a video game developer who recognized that the Meridian's bioelectric fields could be controlled using modified virtual reality interfaces. "It's like playing the world's most advanced video game," Lieutenant Maria Santos said, demonstrating the neural interface that allowed her to control one of the hybrid vessels they'd grown in the Mariana Trench. The ship, if you could call it that, looked like a cross between a manta ray and a submarine, its organic hull pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. But their progress didn't go unnoticed. 24 hours before the harvester fleet was due to arrive, Sarah received a transmission that chilled her to the bone. "They know." Nixus's mental voice was tight with fear. "The harvesters have detected our defense preparations. They are accelerating their approach. We have less than 12 hours. Sarah looked out over the assembled fleet, a mixture of human naval vessels and hastily grown Meridian bioships. It wasn't enough. They needed more time, more resources, more. Then she saw it. The answer had been in front of them all along. "The harvesters hunt by detecting energy signatures, right?" she asked Nixus. "That's how they followed you across the galaxy." "Yes. Our bioelectric fields are distinctive." Sarah smiled, her mind racing with possibilities. Then let's give them something new to chase, something they've never seen before. Lieutenant Santos, get your team ready. We're going to teach these aliens about humanity's greatest skill, adaptation. As the plan took shape, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humans had always been underestimated, by themselves, by others, by the very laws of nature. But time and again, they had proven that their greatest strength lay not in their technology or their numbers, but in their ability to face the impossible and find a way through. The harvesters were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Rising storm. The harvester ships emerged from hyperspace like massive obsidian shards against Earth's atmosphere. Sarah watched them appear on the quantum imaging display, her heart pounding as she counted their numbers. 7 capital ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, accompanied by swarms of smaller vessels that moved with insectoid precision. Status of Operation Firefly. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm. All decoys are in position. Lieutenant Santos reported from her neural interface chamber. The lieutenant was connected to a network of modified Meridian bioships, each one pulsing with a unique energy signature designed to confuse and scatter the harvesters' hunting patterns. They are confused, Nixus communicated, their mental voice tinged with something like amusement. They expected to find us cowering in the depths. Instead, they see hundreds of energy signatures, none matching their records. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The plan was working, at least this part of it. By combining human electromagnetic technology with Meridian bioorganic systems, they had created a web of false signatures that made it impossible for the harvesters to locate their true quarry. But the enemy was far from defeated. The lead harvester ship began to descend, its massive hull parting to reveal what looked like an enormous drill. "They're deploying their primary weapon," Sarah announced, her voice steady despite her fear. "Everyone, remember your training. We only get one shot at this." The drill began to spin, generating a vortex that would normally be used to strip a planet's oceans. But Earth's defenders had prepared for this moment. As the vortex formed, dozens of modified Meridian vessels activated their biofields in a carefully choreographed sequence. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The vortex, instead of pulling water upward, began to oscillate erratically. The harvester ship shuddered, its drill spinning faster as it tried to compensate. "Now," Sarah commanded. Lieutenant Santos and her team activated their neural interfaces at full power. The hybrid vessels under their control surged forward, their organic hulls glowing with accumulated energy. They weren't trying to fight the vortex. They were adding to it, using the harvester's own weapon against them. But as the battle raged, Sarah noticed something strange in the data streaming across her screens. The harvester ship's energy patterns were familiar somehow, reminiscent of. "Oh my God," she whispered as the realization hit her. "Nixus, the harvesters. They're like you, aren't they? They're aquatic beings." The Meridian leader was silent for a long moment. "Yes," they finally admitted. "They were once our kindred, before they chose a different path. When their own oceans began to die, they decided to take what they needed from others rather than seek harmony. That's why they hunt you," Sarah said, the pieces falling into place. "Your biotechnology, your ability to adapt to different marine environments. They wanted to save themselves. We offered to share our knowledge freely," Nixus replied, their mental voice heavy with ancient sorrow. "But they believed taking by force was easier than learning to create sustainable solutions. They forgot the most important lesson of the seas, that life must flow in cycles, give and take in balance." A massive explosion rocked the command center as one of the harvester ships scored a direct hit on their defenses. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Primary shield grid is down," Marcus called out. "Biofield network is destabilizing." Sarah gripped the edge of her console, her mind racing. The harvester's true nature changed everything. And maybe, just maybe, it gave them a chance to end this without further bloodshed. "Lieutenant Santos, fall back to secondary positions," she ordered. "Admiral, I need emergency authorization to attempt direct communication with the Harvester fleet." Admiral Chen stared at her. "You want to talk to them now?" "Trust me," Sarah said, already preparing the modified communication array. "I think I know what they really want. And more importantly, I know what they need to hear." As she worked, Sarah could feel Nixus watching her through their psychic link. "You believe you can reach them where we failed?" "No," Sarah replied, finishing her calculations. "I believe we can reach them together. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective to bridge an ancient divide." The battle raged around them as Sarah prepared to take the biggest gamble of her life. If she was wrong, Earth's oceans, and every being that called them home, would be lost. But if she was right, she took a deep breath and opened the channel to the Harvester fleet, ready to prove that humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to find solutions where others saw only conflict. The human element. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth," she broadcast, her voice steady despite the chaos of battle around her. "I'm speaking to the Harvester Command with a proposition." The response came as a harsh, grating sensation in her mind, so different from the Meridian's gentle telepathic touch. Why should we listen to a primitive species that allies itself with refugees and cowards? "Because we've done something in weeks that you haven't managed in centuries," Sarah replied. "We've successfully merged our technology with Meridian bioorganic systems, and we're willing to share that knowledge." A pause. The massive Harvester ships hung in the sky like suspended judgment. "You lie. Such integration is impossible." Sarah nodded to Lieutenant Santos, who activated her neural interface. The hybrid vessel under her control performed a complex series of maneuvers, its human-engineered weapon systems working in perfect harmony with its Meridian organic components. "Impossible?" Sarah asked. "We're doing it right now. Humanity has a gift for adapting, for finding connections others miss. We can help you save your dying oceans, but not through conquest, through collaboration." Another blast rocked the command center. On the tactical display, 3 more Harvester attack ships were moving into position. "You know nothing of our needs," the Harvester leaders snarled in their minds. "Our oceans are not merely dying. They are becoming poison. The microorganisms that once maintained balance have mutated, turning our waters toxic." "Then you need us even more than you realize," Sarah said, pulling up the preliminary analysis she'd been running. "Because Earth's oceans might hold the key to your salvation." She transmitted the data. Studies of Earth's extremophile bacteria, organisms that thrived in the most toxic environments imaginable. "We have life forms that eat pollution, that transform deadly compounds into harmless elements. With Meridian biotechnology and human genetic engineering, we could adapt them to survive in your oceans." "A trick," the Harvester leader insisted, but there was uncertainty in their mental voice. "No trick," Sarah replied. "Just a different solution. You've been taking from other worlds because you thought it was the only way to survive. We're offering you a chance to learn how to heal instead." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "If you continue this attack, we will fight. And thanks to our cooperation with the Meridians, we can hurt you badly. But we would rather help you rebuild." The command center fell silent as they waited for a response. The Harvester ships hung motionless, their weapons still primed but not firing. Finally, a new voice entered their minds, younger, less harsh. "The human speaks truth about their adaptations. Our scans confirm their hybrid vessels are operating at efficiencies we deemed impossible." "They are children," the first Harvester voice protested, "barely out of their own oceans." "Perhaps," the second voice replied, "that is exactly why they can see what we have missed." Sarah held her breath as she felt the Harvesters deliberating. On her screens, the tactical display showed the battle paused in perfect tableau. Human ships, Meridian vessels, and Harvester crafts all suspended in their cosmic dance of conflict. Then Lieutenant Santos called out, "They're powering down their primary weapons." "We will listen," the Harvester leader declared, their mental voice now tinged with something almost like hope. "Show us this impossible thing you have created." The next hours were a blur of activity as Sarah coordinated between human scientists, Meridian bioengineers, and harvester experts. They set up a temporary laboratory on a neutral platform in the Pacific, where representatives from all three species could work together. What they created there would change the course of not just one civilization, but three. The harvester's knowledge of deep space survival, combined with Meridian biotechnology and humanity's talent for unconventional solutions, produced something entirely new. A system for oceanic restoration that could be adapted to any world. As Sarah watched the first test results come in, she felt Nyx's presence in her mind. "You have done what we thought impossible," the Meridian leader said. "You have helped us build a bridge across an ancient divide." "That's what humans do," Sarah replied, smiling as she watched members of all three species working together. "We're too young to know what's impossible, so we just keep trying until we find a way." An admirable trait. Came the harvester scientists' thoughts, softer now, almost friendly. "Perhaps we have grown too old, too set in our ways." "It's never too late to learn new approaches," Sarah said. "That's another human trait. We believe in second chances." As the sun set over the Pacific, Sarah realized that this was more than just a victory for Earth. It was proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or technology, but in its ability to imagine a better way forward, and its stubborn determination to make that vision real. Echo of hope. 5 years later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Deep Horizon Research Station, watching schools of Meridian children play with their human counterparts in the specially designed aquatic learning center. Through the reinforced windows, she could see their bioluminescent patterns shifting with joy as they taught each other games from their respective cultures. "Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it?" Marcus asked, joining her at the window. He'd traded his research assistant position for a role as chief cynobiologist of the Joint Species Initiative. "Which part?" Sarah smiled. "That we turned a potential invasion into the biggest scientific cooperation in human history, or that we're now running an interspecies elementary school." "Both," he laughed. "Though I think the school is more challenging than stopping the invasion." A familiar presence touched Sarah's mind. "The children adapt faster than any of us expected," Nyxus observed, gliding into view beyond the window. The Meridian leader's silver markings had gained an iridescent quality over the years, a sign of their contentment in their new home. "Children usually do," Sarah replied. "They don't know something's supposed to be impossible, so they just do it." The facility's alert system chimed softly, announcing the arrival of their latest visitors. Sarah turned to see a harvester delegation entering through the station's specialized pressure locks. Their bioorganic environmental suits, a hybrid technology developed through the three species cooperation, allowed them to move comfortably in Earth's lighter pressure. "The preliminary results from the Proxima colony are promising," the lead harvester scientist, Kex, communicated as they approached. "The adapted extremophiles have reduced toxic levels by 60% in just 3 months." Sarah nodded, pulling up the latest data on her tablet. After the success of Earth's ocean restoration project, they had begun helping the harvesters reclaim their poisoned homeworld and establish new colonies around other stars. Each success strengthened the bonds between their species. The United Nations Space Council is reviewing proposals for 2 more joint research stations, she told them. One in the Mariana Trench, another in the Southern Ocean. "Excellent," Nyxus replied. "Our elders believe the Antarctic waters will be perfect for preserving our historical archives. The cold and pressure remind them of our ancient home." A burst of excited squeals, both acoustic and telepathic, drew their attention back to the learning center. A young harvester, barely old enough to wear an environmental suit, had joined the children's game. The human kids were teaching them to play tag, while the Meridian youngsters added their own twist with bioluminescent patterns. "You know," Marcus said thoughtfully, "when I was getting my PhD, I never imagined I'd be writing papers on interspecies playground dynamics." Sarah laughed. "I never imagined any of this. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We're all learning to see possibilities we never considered before. Through their mental link, she felt agreement from both Nixis and Kex. The harvester scientists moved closer to the window, their usually stern demeanor softening as they watched the children play. We spent centuries believing that survival meant taking what we needed by force, Kex reflected. In less than a decade, your species showed us that cooperation could achieve more than conquest ever did. Humans have a saying, Sarah replied. A rising tide lifts all boats. We just applied it on a galactic scale. The station's lights dimmed slightly as the sun set outside, triggering the automatic activation of the bioluminescent algae they used for supplementary lighting. Another innovation born from their collaboration. The soft blue glow reminded Sarah of that first dawn on the Nautilus, when she'd heard a desperate plea from the depths. One cry for help, answered with compassion instead of fear, had changed the course of 3 civilizations. Now, as she watched the next generation playing together without a thought to their differences, she knew they had built something far more powerful than any weapon or shield. They had built hope. The Council of Elders has a new question, Nixis announced, drawing Sarah's attention back to the present. They wish to know if Earth would consider hosting the first interspecies scientific congress next year. Sarah grinned. I think we can arrange that, though we might need to work on the venue. Not many conference centers are designed for 3 different environmental requirements. A challenge, Kex noted, their mental tone carrying a hint of amusement. But as you humans have taught us, that merely makes it interesting. As if to emphasize the point, the children's game erupted in a spectacular display of bioluminescence, human laughter, and telepathic joy. In that moment, Sarah saw the future they were building, not just of survival or coexistence, but of genuine understanding and shared discovery. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not through force of arms or technological might, but through its ability to listen, adapt, and imagine new possibilities. They had proven that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't the ability to destroy or conquer, but the simple willingness to help. And that, Sarah reflected as she watched the next generation of 3 species playing together in perfect harmony, was the greatest victory of all. The end.